Hey everybody, we're back for Why I Learn, episode number 5, and I'm going to be talking to Gibran Whitted. I'm so excited, Gibran, to have this conversation. Thanks for being here.
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, man. It's nice to meet you.
Well, tell us a little bit about you and who you are, like your story. What we're really looking for in this is just conversations about people that make choices to learn things. And you've been recommended as somebody that's a learner. So I'm always curious, what got you to that point and what were the moments where you really made that choice to learn something?
Absolutely, man. Well, so first of all, I am from North Carolina, originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the son of a teacher, a 35-year teacher, and my dad is a doctor. And so learning obviously has always been in my
Yeah,
life.
we grew up around it.
Yeah, so not only from like a classroom setting where my mom would give us little small lessons, but where my dad really encouraged the curiosity in me. I would ask him a simple question: "Hey, Dad, what is it like to live in the desert?" This is, mind you, well before I ever imagined that I would live here. But he'd say, "Well, why don't you tell me?" And so we had this big. It was in the '80s. I'm an old guy,
Yeah,
so in the '80s
you
we had.
couldn't just Google it.
Right, we had the Encyclopedia Britannicas that we updated every like 3 or 4 years. So I would go and have to look it up, figure out if I liked it, figure out what I was asking him and how to provide him the information. And
Yeah,
that really, in me, it instilled an explorer spirit, right? So it's always been, if I want to understand something or learn something, I could probably find it, and then I could report back to whoever it was that I was originally going to ask. So that's
so
kind of,
interesting. So
yeah.
every kid is born with questions, and you showed up and said, "Hey, I don't know this thing. Like, here's my question." And your dad, instead of answering it, encouraged you to go find the answers on your own.
Yeah, he challenged me. He was like, I always want to make sure that I have enough in here so that you can find what you need,
Right.
but I'm not always going to have that answer for you. So it was like, just make sure that you have the resources available and make sure that you have a means to identifying what it is you want, and then go get it. And so it
I love
started
it.
out with encyclopedia, and obviously those things have changed. We have an entire microcomputer on our phones now, but
Right.
yeah, it's that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
My zeal for learning new information.
So awesome. It sounds like a wonderful childhood, and you've been given a great gift, right, of being a learner from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
talk to me about like a moment in your life where learning, really played a role, like whatever that looks like, where you kind of made a choice. I'm going to learn this thing, and then I want to dive in and learn it.
So okay, I can give you a really good example. Um, so I before I had my son, I have an 8-year-old son, and he when he was conceived and when me and his mother were together, she lived in Phoenix and I lived in Seattle.
Okay.
The only part of the company that I worked for that was in Phoenix was the data center. And at the time, I was not an IT guy at all.
Yeah.
At the time, I helped manage call centers. I did call center operations, making sure that we coordinated schedules and the right people got the right calls. Definitely not IT, much more logistically related, right?
Cool. Yep.
But the only thing that they had available here by the time or during the time that he was born was this IT job where you'd sit in this big dark room all night, and it was called a NOC, or a network operations center,
Okay.
right? And so all this NOC did was it watched the environment. By the way, it's going to get loud. They're doing the flyover.
Oh, is that right now?
Yeah, and we live in Buckeye, so it's literally right there.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
so where was I? Okay, so I talked to my manager and I said, listen, I'm having a child. I am not the deadbeat father type. So I got to get down there. And he was like, well, we work with this group anytime something goes wrong. They'll usually typically reset a server,
Yep.
everything's back to normal. And I was like, oh, well, that's an easy job. I could do that.
I can flip the
All them
power on
answers.
and off.
Yeah, turn it off, turn it back on. The same thing all tech support says, right?
All tech support.
Did you control alt delete, right? So I get down here, and the network operations center is a whole lot more than that one server that we had to have
Yeah,
turned on and off.
sure.
And so over the course of that year, I had to learn everything about the way that a data center is set up. I had to learn the different reports that they would pull to monitor what was going on within that network. I had to learn troubleshooting steps. And so that encouragement came from wanting to be with my kid.
Right.
It was like, this is like a do or die situation, not die, but do or not live the same way situation.
Yeah.
And if I don't capitalize and learn it on the fly, then I don't get to be with my family. I don't get to make my family a family. And so that's always been one of the real things that's pushed me since
Yeah.
having him. So that was really one of the biggest. I think that's the
You
biggest
felt
one.
kind of like a responsibility almost, like to be there for your son. It was like,
Oh yeah,
this is something I need to do.
yeah.
And once you made that call, which is amazing and admirable, and just being willing to do that and take that risk, there's no way that's comfortable or easy to make a journey like that. But what did that look like? I mean, did you have to go to school, get some credentials? I mean, did you kind of just pick it up on the job? How did you approach it?
So I had like a dual approach, right? So I did not go officially back to school, but I did go back and get an A+, which teaches the
Yep.
the infrastructure. And then I bugged everybody. I bugged everybody. So I would see what people did. We had network engineers that we would have to call in the middle of the night. If something went down, the next morning I would call and say, hey, I saw that you worked through this. What exactly did you need to do, or what did you need to access to make sure that when we got the call, what alert did you see that let you know this is where you need to go to make the adjustment? And so after doing that for a year, I got it.
You just figured it out. Yeah.
So I did get a certification to go along with it. Mainly so when they said something like, I need you to pull a database log for me, or they said, I need you to look at this web server and tell me, I needed to know what the function of each one of them was.
Right.
But in my opinion, in any major corporate environment, they're going to tailor fit it to what they need. So if I would have gotten the generic information, like, if I would have just went and got the certificate and been like, all right, I'm ready, I would not have been ready.
You still would have had to go like learn it all new anyway, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I modeled my learning experience within that particular engagement.
Gibran, I hear this all the time. Like people like you deciding you want to learn something, asking a good question. Oftentimes people are really willing to, you joke like you were bugging people, but I would imagine they were pretty happy to answer your questions. And
I only say I was bugging them. I only say I was bugging them because it was just like,
it's a joke.
I'm the curious new guy, right?
Yeah.
But majority of the people, and I think you'll find this with most people who are eager to learn, is that they're eager even more to teach.
Yeah,
right.
Of course, because you've been there too. You know what it feels like to not know something and ask the question. Now, this is interesting. Why do you think more people don't do this? Like, why don't people ask? Because I see a lot of people that are like, I don't really know, but I don't want to look stupid or whatever. It's like they won't actually go out and ask those questions.
I'm going to accredit that to this dangerous attachment we have to pride.
Okay.
Right. We don't want to look like we don't know something, even if we legitimately don't know it, which I think is hilarious, right? I really don't know.
Yeah.
But to ask and rid myself of that ignorance sometimes feels like you're going to take a plunge, and you don't want to sound like or feel like you're not equal to or greater than someone, right?
It's like you have too much at stake, kind of like what people think of me. I don't want them to know that I don't actually know.
Yeah, after a while, though, again, the human spirit, I feel like when you feel smart when somebody asks you a question that you can answer.
Yeah.
And once you realize that there's an empowering force to asking someone if they can help you grasp something. Yeah.
Empowering, an interesting word you chose. So I've started this network of micro schools. It's like a new kind of education for kids, like K-8. And our mission that we landed on is empower learners. What we're trying to do is get them to that point where they're willing to do it. It's been interesting to watch kids come in and just right along this vein, right? They'll kind of start out with like, okay, like I know this, like they want to feel like an expert, right? Which is cool. And they'll give a presentation or answer a question. But then when they run into, invariably this happens, you run into something you don't know And it's interesting to watch the psychological struggle, right? Like a kid will kind of, it's like it feels uncomfortable for them. They don't want to be in that zone. Over and over again, I have to tell these kids, like, look, it's good to not know something because that's the only way you can learn. If you already know it, you can't learn it. So you have to not know it first. It's like a prerequisite. And to get them like to embrace that, to say, oh, great, I found something I don't know. And then go out and do like you did, even as a child, right? Asking good questions, reading stuff, researching, like going, finding people who do know. And I think those are really powerful examples for, you know, everybody, but especially like when they're young.
It's really important right now. When I'm working and also doing second grade lessons to make sure my son understands, because he's really independent, right? He doesn't really like to ask a whole bunch of questions, but literally we're in a situation right now where we're stuck in a home and we're trying to carry out the curriculum he would otherwise be getting. So I tell him every day, you're not supposed to know everything that you're being presented.
It's good. It's good to not know.
I want you to ask. I want you to look for the answers, because like I said, we aren't in that mode where we're sticking them in a classroom now. And they're there in front of somebody who's supposed to be teaching them all day.
Powerful.
It's a learning experience all its own now, right? So we want them to be independent. But then there's the point where you're not supposed to know this yet.
You know? Exactly. Like the reason I'm here showing it to you is because like this is ahead of you in your learning. I want to jump ahead a little bit and just go over maybe one more story. I think I heard that you were involved in some like culinary stuff, and I'd love to kind of explore. I mean, so you've given one example of like you taught yourself IT basically so that you could be close to your son, which is a powerful motivator and a beautiful story. Talk about this culinary interest that you had and sort of what motivated you there and what happened.
Yeah, sure. So well, as a kid, we did a lot of exercise and running and working out. So I was blessed to not have a gut until I turned 35. I ate a lot. We ate a lot of foods, and I am one, which this is going to tie into my culinary. I love culture. I love culture in general, right? So I like understanding other cultures. I love understanding what their customs are, what why they use the flavors they use, because those are plants that are around, right? And so I've done a lot of and I like cooking. It's just I do music, I do cooking. Those things soothe my soul, right? And so in an effort to kind of break away from the regional Southeastern culinary experience that I had, where most things were fried, and it was, you know, I didn't even know fish could be made a different way other than fried until I moved, right? Or when I first came to Arizona and I went to Papado, the first place I ever went in Arizona was Papado. And I asked the guy for iced tea. He brings me an iced tea, and I tasted it. I was like, you forgot the sugar. Because in North Carolina, that's how it came.
It was sweet. Yeah,
these small experiences gave me just that same curiosity. Okay, well, I know somewhere this isn't normal. Right? Somewhere what I ate in North Carolina isn't normal, like Arizona, right? And so just trying to understand and really explore palate, explore how flavors work. I watched a lot of this is going to sound stupid, but whatever. I watched a lot of Food Network, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and I watched the Iron Chef, and I just really enjoyed watching them put flavors together. And so now, you know, you can look at my freezer now, and you'll see fish from all over the place. There's a really good fish restaurant. I mean, a fish market that I go to down in Central Phoenix that has fish flown in overnight from all over the world.
Wow.
And so I'll go there and I'll find this fresh piece of fish, and I'll be like, how do they usually make this wherever it came from? And they'll tell me, I'll go get the ingredients and I'll hook it up, and I'll take a picture of it on Instagram and be like, look what I made. Right? Because it again, it's that exploratory. I just want to understand it. Where does that come from? How do people who have never had a piece of fried fish consume fish if it's one of the most, you know, there are people who have a whole diet based on fish. So I need to figure out as many ways as possible to explore, cook, experience that fish,
right?
So that I can get an understanding of it. So That's
So
my color.
let me see if I'm getting it. So it sounds like some of the things I'm hearing you say is like connection to other people and cultures. Like it's a way of like understanding the world, like learning cooking, at least in this context. It's like, I want to feel this connection. I want to understand other people. There's a little bit of it sounds almost like hedonistic, right? It's just like, it feels good to like see if I can figure something out and make it. And I'm sure not every single dish you make like turns out perfect, but like that's part of the fun, right? Maybe it does.
I'm just kidding. It's not all perfect. I made some homemade biscuits one time about 10 years ago, and my wife still to this day, I think last week I made something with some dough.
Yeah.
And she was like, make sure you don't put in too much baking powder, because the last one tasted like metal bricks. So yes, I had some fails.
Never hear the end of that one. That's hilarious.
Yeah, she still brings it up.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting to hear kind of the motivations and the reasons. Well, if you had to give, we're kind of getting to the end here, but if you had to give some advice, just you're clearly one of these people that has always been, but it sounds like you've even like improved at your skills of learning over the course of your life. I mean, if you had to like give somebody advice, what would you offer?
I guess, and I'm gonna make this up. This is going to be
I didn't ask you this in advance, so there's no chance to prepare.
Do you know that feeling of wondering if you've been to a beach? Let's start there. If you've been to a beach and you stand on the sand where the water starts to touch, and you look, and everywhere you look, you see water. Life should be that way. Everywhere I go, I should see some more extension that can happen, and know that life in between, because between where you're standing and where the end of that water is, there is an abundance of life thriving in that water. And every step you take out, you'll experience some of that life. There will still be more life to experience.
Yeah.
It's like a never-ending pursuit of understanding life as you're on the journey. And as long as you stop, or if you ever stop trying to pursue learning something new, the motivation for life somewhat slips.
Right.
You always want to learn something. Learning and taking in new information is something that we do consistently in our life, one way or the other.
It's like central to the human experience.
It is. Yeah. Like learning new people, learning what makes people tick. You're going to do that if you fall in love and get married, or if you have a child and want to teach them, or if you. So all of these things are always a pursuit in life. You're always learning and taking in new information. It's a matter of what you want to learn.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how you apply it. And it's a matter of passing it on so somebody else has the zeal to continue to do the same thing.
It's beautiful. Well, on that note, I mean, thank you so much, Gibran. This has been inspirational, truly. And it's awesome to hear how you've approached things and just shared some of your stories. So thanks for being here.
I appreciate it. I wish I could have got a haircut, but this quarantine thing is killing us, man.
You look great.